assuming you have enough meter and the assist available. So that's 1. That's 2. Actually, that was 3. I can't count. 1 more, 1 more, 1 more. Hey there, the Season 3.5 patch brought changes to a lot of characters that desperately needed buffs, at least in the eyes of the community. And I've been trying my best to run through all those characters and update you guys on what those buffs are, show practical situations where they can apply, and then give a little bit of a rundown of the character for anyone who has no idea what they're doing. Well, let's forget about that for a little bit. Piccolo also got buffed. I think most people agree that Piccolo was already a pretty good character. Whether you thought he was top tier or just high tier, that's not the point. I think pretty much everyone agreed that he was at least able to win, right? So it's a bit questionable that he ended up getting buffs at all, but I think the ones he got aren't quite as big as people think. He got 1 buff that definitely makes a huge difference, and the rest are all either very small quality of life changes that you wouldn't have noticed if you weren't a Piccolo player already, or they're just small quality of life changes for everyone, including the person Piccolo is fighting against, such as his very minor Hellzone change. So we're going to talk about those changes right now, and then I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of some of the things you really need to look out for if you're trying to pick up this character or fight against him. I love this character. Piccolo has been a super fun character for me to play for a really long time, so I want to talk about him a little bit here. I think there's one change that I'm going to be talking about for a significant part of this video because it's such a big change and impacts a handful of situations that are pretty common for him. So that first change is with his chops, his demon slicer, right? So he has a light version, which does not sliding knockdown, a medium version, which does sliding knockdown, and then a heavy version. You're going to see this all the time for his knockdowns. Well, what changed about this move? Well, look at how fast the light version is normally. This is the regular version. Just in neutral, look how fast this is. Pretty reasonably slow, actually. Now look how fast it is here. That's super fast. What's the difference? Well, anytime the opponent is being comboed in the air, it is significantly faster than it is regularly on the ground. This is actually exactly how C assists work in the game currently. So let's put a C assist on Yamcha here, and let's just see how fast it is. It's a 40 frame startup, right? 40 frame startup. Now, what if we hit the opponent? It's only 20 frame startup, significantly faster. And the reason this works is because they want C assists to be very easy to use in combo. So if you're in a combo and you call the assist, they want it to just work. And that's essentially what they did with Piccolo's chop here. This only applies to the ground version, so it doesn't matter if you're in the air. This version is the same speed as it's always been. Same with his EX version, which I believe has actually gotten a little bit faster since Season 1, but that wasn't included in this patch. That was one of the previous ones, unless I'm mistaken. I might be mistaken. My memory's not the best. But yeah, so this move, being significantly faster if the opponent is being comboed in the air, has a handful of implications. I already showed one of them. The first is that this gives you a really easy way to pick up things like beam assists and other tools in neutral. Honestly, pretty much any assist in neutral that happens to hit the opponent, it's going to give you a actual reaction combo from it. You're only really going to get this to work with the light version because the medium version isn't going to go full screen. But the good thing about this is you can do this, even though this move doesn't give you a knockdown, you can vanish cancel it. And from here, you can get a knockdown. In the past, what you would do here is maybe just run up and end with his grab, his crouch key blast, actually. And that kind of put up a sort of knockdown situation where you could safe jump with an air dash into an H. But now, you actually have the option of ending with his medium chop really quickly so that you can keep a sliding knockdown in that situation too, which is super nice. This saves you from having to spend an extra bar by doing something like EX chop here. So I think where this change is going to come into play the most and impact matches the most in a way where he didn't have anything before is just that now he can pick up assists very conveniently and then combo into vanish for whatever he wants to do. Even if you have like an orb coming out and you know for a fact it's going to hit the opponent, like you saw them whiff something, the orb is about to whiff punish them, you can pick it up with the chop super quickly to get a combo. And if you have another assist available, you can call that super quick and then pick up the combo from there. and you do retain your sliding knockdown since the original chop didn't actually sliding knockdown to begin with. Light chop being faster also gives you a better way of ending combos after a Dragon Rush ender. In the past, what you would do is just go for the Dragon Rush and then orb, and then you would super after that, but you can see we get a little bit more damage if we go for the chop. And to my knowledge, this should still work from a reasonably scaled combo, so you don't have to worry about this dropping if you scaled the combo too much. You can still do this and then combo into super, and you're good to go. Speaking of supers though, a much more exciting way of using this is to use it with his Hellzone Grenade to stack tons of damage. So in the past, he's always been able to end a combo with Hellzone Grenade in a variety of ways. This is one of them. And then afterwards, he can still end the combo with an Air Dragon Rush and dump even more supers. And these supers still do the full minimum scaled damage. So Piccolo has always been very, very good at dumping a lot of meter because he's one of those characters that can actually stack supers very, very well. Well, now he can stack another one pretty easily and still get pretty good damage while doing it. And all he has to do is Hellzone Grenade. After the Hellzone Grenade hits, he's going to cancel into his Standing Medium, his 5M, or his 3S, which is his down forward Ki Blast. And then after that, he's going to cancel into the Orb, Chop, call the assist, and Hellzone Grenade again. So let's see what that looks like real quick. And the assist is locking them down after the elbow connects, and that super is going to work. This works at incredibly high scalings for combos. So here's an example of how much this seemingly small buff adds up on offense. Now we're going to stack our supers. Remember, we started with only 4 bars here. Another one. And we're going to end in Air Dragon Rush. And then we have 3 more supers to go. And this is definitely going to be a dead character. Oh my goodness. So yeah, this definitely makes a pretty big difference when it comes to his ability to stack supers. Keep in mind you're going to need an assist if you want to stack another Hellzone Grenade after the first one. This works because the chop kind of ground bounces them a little bit and keeps them on the ground here. And if you can get your assist to hit roughly around the time the chop hits, you will be able to fill that gap and go for the super. By the way, this does work with like a bunch of assists. I know Roshi B is an exceptionally good assist, but trust me when I say that this does actually work with a bunch of other ones. So don't be discouraged if you aren't playing Roshi. When you time the assist might be slightly different depending on the character, but the general idea is going to stay the same. And in case you're wondering why, yes, you can do this multiple times, assuming you have enough meter and the assists available. So that's 1. That's 2. Actually, that was 3. I can't count. 1 more. 1 more. 1 more. So it's 3 Hellzone Grenades and then 3 regular supers after that. I know that looks super ridiculous, but keep in mind that that actually took 2 more meter to start than I needed from the previous combo because I extended farther on the previous one, which made up the damage that we ended up gaining from that extra Hellzone Grenade, and we didn't build any bar by doing so. So if that makes any sense, if you can extend and build meter while extending, that's always better than going into Hellzone Grenade because you can always Hellzone Grenade later, assuming you have half a bar for an EX Chop and the Hellzone Grenade available. Even though that looks pretty crazy, I still think the most practical part about this change is just the fact that I am going to be able to convert many assists in neutral pretty easily, while also maintaining a sliding knockdown because of this change. Because in the past, we would not have been able to combo into his medium chop at all mid-screen without like the use of another assist or something. Overall, this single change to his Demon Slicer on the ground makes a pretty big impact in a few areas throughout the course of a match. But again, even though this greatly impacts his ability to extend with multiple Hellzone Grenades at the end of a combo, I don't think that's something you're going to see every single match because he's going to need a ton of meter to do it. He's usually the point character. He can usually 2-touch you without doing that anyway. So it's really only going to come up when he has a ton of meter, he has both assists available, or at least 1 assist available, and your character also has enough health for it to be worth it for him to do it. It's one of those really cool changes that really stands out, but I don't think that's the part about this that's going to really be making a significant impact. Again, I think just the versatility of, oh, I saw my assist get the hit, let me convert that real quick with a teleport is probably where the big change is. But that's not as cool, is it? All right, on to the next buff he got. His command grabs now can be held. So this is how fast his standing command grab normally is. It's about 30 frames, 28 frames if you're up close. It is a little slower the farther away you are, right? And then that's his standing key blast, actually. He doesn't have a regular key blast. And his crouch key blast is an annual version, which looks like this. We mostly only see this in combos, but it does come up occasionally in neutral, just not that often, honestly. All right, so that's how they were before, and that's how they still are. But now you have the option to hold the button and make it significantly slower, about 40 frames point blank, 43-ish from farther away. Now, a 40-frame command grab is pretty yikes. I think most of us are going to agree that something this slow is probably not going to mix someone up. It's more likely that this is either going to completely catch someone who's just entirely asleep at the wheel, or it might catch someone who goes for a reflect. So maybe if someone is autopiloting a reflect, it could snatch them up, but I don't really know. I don't really see the charge version coming into play that often in actual matches. But that's besides the point. What does it do? Well, when you hold the button, he gets a pretty easy combo from it. He actually gets to just pick it up with normals, where in the past, what he has to do is cancel into a normal. And he can only cancel into heavies. So before mid-screen, this was about all you got. That was it. That was the combo. You would end up having to use an assist, and you'd have to use a vanish or something in order to extend. I think overall, command grabbing mid-screen was just not really ever super rewarding. It was something you did once in a while when you wanted to show that you have the option. But now, you're still probably not going to use it that much, let's be honest. But it is cool that if you manage to get the hit, you can actually get some kind of a combo from it. Although, it still doesn't scale that well. This honestly just feels like a significantly worse version of Master Roshi's grab. I'm sure this can be useful in combos, but I just don't really know where it's going to come into play as an actual mix-up, if it will at all. I'm suspecting that it really won't. But these command grabs actually did get one other change that is interesting and will come up in actual matches if people want to optimize a little more. And that change is that now he can actually combo into his grounded command grab, even though it shouldn't hit people in the air normally. So you can combo into it even if they're in the air in that combo. In the past, the only version you could use was his anti-air command grab, so you'd commonly see combos that look something like this. And those are really cool. But now you have the option of adding another hit in here, which can definitely help with optimizing a little bit more. But this extra hit usually makes it so that you're too scaled to get your regular sliding knockdown with the medium chop, if you extended to that degree. So to get around this, you're probably going to end your combo in EX chop instead. And if you were going for a Hellzone Grenade ender anyway, that's probably what you were going to do. So it probably doesn't make a big difference in that regard. Anyway, I'm sure we're going to see this pop up for combos. I'm excited to see what people do. I'm sure by now some of the combo channels on YouTube probably came out with some pretty cool stuff. So definitely look around. I'm sure there's a lot of really interesting stuff you're going to see with this character between these two changes. Next, his Hellzone Grenade actually got a sort of nerf. I don't think this really affects the game very much, but I think some people complain that it's hard to see when Hellzone Grenade is going on, and it should be hard to see, right? You should get mixed if you block it. But if you reflect it, people were saying you probably should be able to see a little bit better. So look on regular block how Hellzone Grenade looks. Look at all of these explosions that are making contact with Yamcha, right? It's very difficult to see. They're very distracting. Honestly, he's going to 50-50 if you block this anyway, so I don't really think the visual matters that much. But look at what it looks like now if you reflect it. Those explosions just aren't there at all. Except for the very last one. That's still there, but that's fine. If you continue to reflect, that one probably won't show up either. Fun fact, one reflect actually isn't enough to get rid of the entire Hellzone Grenade. You're going to have to do it twice. Otherwise, you are still going to get mixed at the end there. And I'm pretty sure everyone knows how Hellzone Grenade works by now, but ideally if he can find a way to lock you down, especially if you don't have meter, he can lock you down, call an assist, and then go for Hellzone Grenade. And this whole thing should jail, and he should be able to run up to you, and then jump and go for an air dash into a high. Or he could land and go low, right? And this is pretty much impossible to see, and honestly, even if you could see it, it wouldn't matter because this sort of position where you do a low air dash or just land and go low, that's just considered a 50-50 pretty much across the board. But what if you have meter? Can't you guard cancel it? And the answer is absolutely yes. That's how you get out of the situation. So you're both going to trade a bar, and you're going to be out of the corner. However, there's a lot of assists out there that move it kind of in front of Piccolo and kind of slow down how long it takes for your guard cancel to actually make contact with him, and it will let him block in time. Because you just won't make it there before he is able to recover. I don't actually know if I'm doing this properly because I'm doing this in training mode and I'm not actually like playing it back on a recording. But that idea works with a handful of characters like Teen Gohan, Nappa, and a few others, and you just won't really be able to guard cancel at all. And even if you could guard cancel, what he could do to save himself is to cancel into another character's level 1 or level 3, although the damage from this is very low and it's going to be entirely blue health, so you don't really have to worry about it that much. All it really does is let him get some sort of consolation prize for you getting out of the situation. And most level 1s aren't going to actually have a real knockdown that's going to transition into any kind of offense. You'll be able to scramble by forward teching out, or up teching, or late teching, or down tech mashing into buttons. Most level 1s are going to let you do that. But some characters like Yamcha are going to actually be able to keep a sliding knockdown, which is really nice. Overall, Hellzone Grenade isn't an enormous part of his game plan anymore, especially since he got that pretty much entirely removed with the snap meta being taken away. So snap no longer works the way it did before. I'm sure most of you guys are aware of that. You can delay when you come in from the snap. So you come in from being snapped significantly faster. Look how fast they just pop in right away. And you have the option to delay when you come in by up to 30 frames if you just hold back on the stick. This means that Hellzone Grenade just doesn't work anymore. You can't just do it after a snap. Let's set the opponent to counterattack with a Vanish here. And now if we were to snap them out and try to Hellzone Grenade like in the past, we just can't do it. In fact, in the past, I think what we did was backdash into Hellzone Grenade. It's because it was that plus after a snap. And now even if we don't backdash, we can't get away with it. They're just going to vanish us as soon as they come in. So if this isn't a thing anymore, why am I even talking about it? And that's because now he sort of does actually have a way of doing it, assuming he has Master Roshi B assist available. He's going to super dash, call the assist when he makes contact, land, and Hellzone Grenade. I don't even know if I did that fast enough, but that's the general idea. And this is going to work because the super dash is so active, it just goes almost forever, right? Until the opponent actually comes in from being snapped in. And as soon as you see that they actually made it in, you're going to call Roshi B, get him locked down, and you can go for your mix-up. This seems really, really good. It seems like a way of bringing the snap meta back to Piccolo, but this isn't a change with Piccolo. This is just something that Master Roshi B assist lets you do. This isn't something that exclusively benefits Piccolo. For example, with pretty much any character that has the ability to snap on the ground, you could do this kind of thing. So you're gonna snap them, super dash, call Roshi B, and you could either air dash at the end there for an overhead, or you could just land and go low. Assuming your low reaches, so this is actually a mild problem. So I think in Teen Gohan's case, since his 2L isn't going to reach, we're just using Teen Gohan as an example real quick. Since his crouching light isn't going to actually reach after the super dash bounces him off, what we're going to do is super dash and then whiff a jump 2H to move him forward. And after that jump 2H, his jump crouch heavy, we should be able to air dash for a high or land and go low, right? Yeah. So I don't want to get off topic of Piccolo too much here. The reason I'm explaining this from other characters' perspective is just because this isn't a Piccolo thing, this is a Master Roshi thing. So this tech is going to be floating around for a while, and I don't want people to potentially get confused and think it is a Piccolo thing. It's a Master Roshi thing. Anyway, back to Piccolo. Let's talk about his buffs some more. We have a few more small ones to get through. His EX Demon Elbow, this cross up. This move, if it doesn't activate, meaning if it gets close enough to the opponent, it will teleport him back to the same side. And it's honestly a pretty tricky mix-up just because people are pretty conditioned when they see him elbow to block the other way. But the same thing goes if he is in the air, right? So if he gets close enough to the opponent, he's going to have it activate and teleport back to the same side. The change that happened here is that on whiff, he recovers significantly faster. Before, if it didn't activate, if it never got close enough to activate, he would be floating there for a really long time. Now he actually recovers relatively quickly, so it can sort of be used as a movement tool without feeling awful about getting whiff punished if you happen to use it slightly too far away. That's not a huge change, but it's worth mentioning. Something that I don't think matters if you don't play Piccolo, but if you do play Piccolo matters a lot. His medium chop in the air, this move, is going to always sliding knockdown if it manages to hit. Here's a very common combo extension where this was pretty important. If you add enough delays in this particular combo, you could then extend it once you got to the ground. Piccolo will actually land so much sooner than the opponent here that he can extend at that point. He'll land before them, be able to hit them with a 5L before they get to the ground, and then you can extend that way, and that lets you save an assist for the end, and then you can use that assist to set up a Hellzone Grenade without having to spend the EX bar or really any meter at all besides the Hellzone Grenade. The problem with this combo before is if you like added one too many hits to the combo route and then you went for this, what would happen is the opponent would tech out because the hit stun scaling kicked in, and they'd probably tech out like right before they hit the ground, and you'd be whiffing a 5L here. It would cause this super weird scramble, and they'd probably down tech, mash buttons, and kill you. So that situation never happens anymore. At least according to the patch notes, it shouldn't happen anymore. I haven't had it happen to me since then. I'm going to assume this is permanently fixed. This is just a quality of life thing for Piccolo, but it really only mattered if you did this combo route to begin with. All right, next, moving on to his assist buffs. His B assist got a pretty reasonable buff. It had a few changes to it. First of all, it appears farther forward. So this goes much farther than before because he doesn't appear like at the same point as Roshi or behind Roshi. He appears right in front of him. So it reaches significantly farther. The other thing about this is the hit stun, if it does hit the opponent, is drastically increased. So now if you happen to see this assist get a hit in neutral, you have all day to run up and pick up your combo, which is just really convenient. The knockback on air hit is also a little bit different, so if it happens to hit in the air, it is also quite a bit easier to pick up in my opinion. You kind of notice how it kind of floats them in place for quite a while and then starts to move them back slowly. This is generally going to be pretty easy to pick up if you happen to get the air hit, assuming you're relatively near the opponent. Honestly, his B assist was already pretty good, but these buffs make it significantly better. So now it's actually a pretty good contender for an assist to use instead of just his A assist. This is the one most people kind of agree is the super good one, because it's super good in neutral. It's really good for combos because it can hit the opponent twice. Extensions with it are just really good. But now the B assist seems a little bit closer to being a real contender to it. But wait, there's more. His C assists also got a change. All C assists are a little bit faster than they used to be, by about 8 frames I believe, but his C assist actually has invincibility on it now. So now it'll actually go through things like beam assists on reaction. You can see he's kind of like guard pointing through all of the beam there, and then he just teleports to the opponent and hits him anyway. I'm sure there's a handful of things you could use this to react to in neutral. Assists might be one of them, beams might be one of them, and of course, since it's a C assist, you should be able to pick it up really easily. It actually scales pretty well too, I'm surprised. Usually C assist scaling is really low, but that might be a universal change, because people were not picking C assists very much before. I think they wanted them to be a little bit faster, a little more useful, and not completely destroy your damage scaling when they hit. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all the Piccolo changes. That's most of what we want to talk about, but I wanted to still also go through some big things with the character and some changes he's had since he came out originally in Season 1. Because looking at Piccolo now, he is a drastically different character than he was before. Imagine doing this back in Season 1. In fact, considering all the changes he's had throughout the game's life, if we could go back in time and watch this combo 2 years ago, it would blow our Season 1 minds. I mean, just think about it. Like this working? We would think this was the most broken character if we could see this way back in Season 1. So he has gotten so many changes throughout the game's life cycle. Also, I love this character. He's so fun. All right, so what are some of these things that have changed about him since he came out? And we'll also talk about some general stuff too. As I said, I'm not planning on turning this into a full Piccolo guide, but I do want to highlight some of the really big things. you know, just general things that you should probably know whether you want to play him or whether you're just going to end up fighting against him. So a huge change at the beginning of Season 3 is that EX moves only cost half a bar. And since Piccolo is a character that dumps meter very well and also needs EX meter for knockdowns in a lot of situations, this benefits him super, super well. In Season 2, we all thought it was a really big buff when he gained the ability to combo into his elbow. And then also, at some point, we gained the ability for Dragon Rush to give us a sliding knockdown. This was another universal change that really benefited him. We thought that spending a bar to get full corner carry was really, really good and a knockdown, even though a lot of other characters would be able to get a knockdown off every hit no matter what. But now, of course, at any point in any combo, he can just spend half a bar to get a sliding knockdown with his EX chop. So he benefits from this a lot because this means he spends less meter early on, and later on he can spend more meter dumping into a bunch of supers to KO you. Regular level 1 does like 750, right, at the end of a combo. Ending with Hellzone Grenade does significantly more, so this is always great if you can do it. I think that's over 1,000 damage if you can end in Hellzone Grenade, jump H, jump 2H, Dragon Rush. And then you can dump even more supers too. So again, I'm just repeating myself here, but he spends meter super well, and giving him the ability to spend even less when he absolutely needs to is, he benefited from that change a lot. It's also worth noting that ending combos in EX Chop works at incredibly high damage scalings. So this means that sometimes it's actually worth it to extend, even if we need to use a half a bar to keep our sliding knockdown at that point. And what I mean is, like, okay, that was 4,400-ish damage, and we built like a bar and a half, right? But now if we want to extend with an assist, maybe his light chop and an assist here, and then we can EX chop again later, we end with the same amount of meter we had from the other combo, but we did like 900 more damage. So the fact that it only costs half a bar means that if we can extend and build half a bar, we feel no regret when we dump into his EX chop at the end. So now Piccolo combos just end up lasting longer than they used to because there's really no reason not to just extend with an assist, end with EX chop, and anytime you can end an EX chop, you can always go into a Hellzone Grenade. So it also gives him a really optimal way of dumping meter at the end. Also, speaking of universal changes in Season 3 that benefited him, snap looping going away actually benefited Piccolo a lot. I know that saying that Piccolo benefited from snap loops going away sounds blasphemous, but hear me out. Before what he would do is he'd snap them, backdash, call Hellzone Grenade, that would meaty them on the way in, he'd get a 50-50, right? He was amazing at snap looping. I'm not saying he wasn't, but so were a bunch of other characters. Adult Gohan, Teen Gohan, Bardock, Base Goku, Gotenks, tons and tons of characters, Kid Buu, snap looped all the time. Even if a character couldn't solo snap really well, if they were able to snap at all and they had an assist available, you would pretty much always get a 50-50. So this is a really common thing in the game. Pretty much every character could get some sort of really good situation if they could get you to that point where they snapped you and they either had an assist available or they were just one of the characters that got good mix-up anyway. Such as a Universal Fuzzy, which was definitely a really big thing for some of the top tiers. Piccolo did all that stuff too. But the difference is, now that everyone's had it taken away, Piccolo is left with incredibly good Oki, incredibly good situation after he gets a sliding knockdown. Because he can just end with his orb, and this covers a ton of options. Being able to get a orb out there on their knockdown that will cover whether they up tech, quick tech, or late tech, and not have to play that mind game helps so much. So honestly, in Season 3, with snap looping being gone, any character that has some sort of unique, strong momentum is going to benefit a lot from it. Piccolo is a great example. Nappa having restance is a great example. Majin Buu having gum toss and restance is again a great example. Krillin, Rock, Oki, you name it. Anything unique like that that covers a lot of extra options when you do get a regular knockdown, which is kind of all we have now, besides for like level 3s or something. Any character that can deal with that situation uniquely is greatly benefited right now. And I think Piccolo is too. Even though it sucks, it's not as much fun for the Piccolo player, it's definitely more fun for the other person. They get to interact again much sooner. They aren't sitting there waiting for a Hellzone Grenade for another 15 seconds. So even though as a Piccolo player I do miss getting to oppress the other person on offense, I don't really mind not doing it anymore, because I know his situation after he does get a sliding knockdown is still so good. I'll stop shilling Orb Oki. I do want to talk about Orb Oki a little bit really quick, because this is pretty important. There's two really important things about Orb Oki that you need to remember. The first is related to the fact that it is a Ki Blast property move. So you can reflect after blocking the orb, and this is both a good and a bad thing. The good thing about this is that after we block the orb, if we want to guess with reflect and push him away, we have that option. The bad thing about this though is that if we meant to reflect the orb itself, instead of reflecting after blocking the orb, if we meant to reflect the actual orb itself as soon as we woke up, getting that timing can be very difficult at first when you're playing against this character. And if you miss that timing, instead of safely reflecting the orb and being able to block right away, you will be whiffing a reflect instead, which means he can hard bait the reflect, get a really big punish with either a Dragon Rush or just a whiff punish of any kind. Just as a really quick demonstration, here's what happens when someone messes up the reflect timing. They just end up whiffing it, and you can get completely destroyed with either a medium or a Dragon Rush or a command grab, or you name it. And there's a lot of mix-ups Piccolo is going to do here that will kind of auto-bait this. For example, if he goes for like an instant air dash into an empty low, right after he goes for the orb, like that could be a pretty tricky mix-up. He will actually auto-bait this, and he'll get a full punish. And speaking of that specific mix-up, there's something about it that you should know. And this is the second thing about the orb. It can actually suck you out of the corner when it hits you on your wake up. Now this is super cheap, but this doesn't happen if the opponent successfully reflects the orb. So let's set the opponent to properly reflect on wake up, and you'll see what I mean. Toss out the orb, I try to air dash, and I don't go behind the opponent anymore because the orb didn't actually make contact normally, you reflected it, so it doesn't affect your positioning on the ground at all. Now why does the orb sometimes suck the opponent out of the corner? The reason this happens is because when you toss out the orb, it goes towards the opponent and it will bounce off the wall. And once it bounces off the wall, it's considered going the other direction now. So whenever it makes contact with the opponent, it will push them the other way instead of the initial way it was going. This doesn't happen literally every time. My recommendation, if you're trying to deal with this, is to reflect the orb on wake up, but you have to practice it or you're going to mess up and get killed for it. But this will for sure happen if you late tech. As you can see, it has all the time in the world to bounce off the wall and reach the opponent. I think in general, if you happen to see Piccolo go for Orb Oki and air dash, expect him to go behind you if you didn't choose to reflect. But you might be wondering, can't we just super dash through it? And the answer is, yeah, you totally can, but the problem is that the Piccolo player can react to whichever direction you tech and just meet you with either a jump light or a stand light on the ground. So we can practice this if we set the opponent to ground recovery random, and we can try to chase the opponent here however they recover. They recovered on the ground, so 5L on the ground. Ground, 5L on the ground. Air, so we're going to jump. And that's really all it is, right? And what if they don't go for the super dash? And if they don't go for the super dash, then this will just autopilot into a block string, right? And we're good to go. I think ideally this doesn't actually get used to immediately set up a mix-up with the orb. It's more about covering a bunch of wake-up options all at once so the Piccolo can mostly be guaranteed pressure. And Piccolo can do some specific things if he wants to not have to worry about a reflect when he notices that the opponent recovered on the ground, and that's just to cancel into his forward Ki Blast, which is this antenna move. Because this is a pretty easy reflect-proof string, right? And then you can call your assist, get your turn started, go for a mix-up after that. Alright, enough about Orb Oki. I don't want to make this whole video about Orb Oki, but hopefully you guys learned something. The more I think about it, the more I realize that a lot of Piccolo's changes he's gotten throughout the life of the game are things that are specifically designed to help him get knockdowns more consistently and extend more consistently. Because way back in Season 1, it felt like all of his combos were basically just like ABC 1, 2, 3, EX chop, spend a full bar, get a worse knockdown than a lot of other characters, which was kind of sad. And now he doesn't ever really have a problem with that. And even when he does have to just end an EX chop because he has no other option, he spends a lot less bar to do it. The knockdown's a little better than it used to be, I think. A really cool change he got in Season 2 was the ability to use a medium chop when his back is to the corner to extend for a pretty good combo. So actually, Piccolo's most optimal combos seem to be when his back is to the corner and he does something like this, as we showed earlier. Alright, I want to talk about Piccolo's mix-up really quick, because I think a lot of people get the wrong idea about what he's supposed to be doing, because he has so many options, right? And the options I'm talking about are his elbow, which is a cross-up, and his key blast, which is actually his command grab. So both of these are not super high rewarding options, unless you were to like convert with an assist or something. And even then, it's not as much as a typical high-low mix-up, right? Key blast would only give him a combo in the corner, although now I suppose he would get a combo if he held it, but I don't see that opening people up that often. So the risk versus reward for doing these things has generally been pretty bad. People seem to think this is where his mix-up needs to be, but again, the risk reward is so bad that I don't think that's the point. If someone were to react to your command grab, for example, and punish you with a super dash, then they would actually be able to kill you. Piccolo actually does a fantastic job of optimizing this, coincidentally. And if someone were to go for like elbow and to vanish, which is a really common way of picking it up, right? If you don't have an assist available, then the other person could either reflect on reaction, which is I think is honestly pretty easy, and then get a punish with an anti-air. Or if they have an EX move that is invincible early on or has armor early on, they can just react to the vanish and get a punish because it's not a true block string. Roshi should be a decent example of this too. And yeah, anyone with like an EX anti-air grab, Super Broly, Kid Buu, Vegito, all of those characters are going to snatch you out of the air after the vanish too. So yeah, I've said it a few times now, but this is not where the mix-up should be focused all the time. This is more like icing on the cake. You need to use these occasionally to remind the other person that they have to worry about them, but this isn't the foundation of his mix-up. His mix-up is honestly better when he just goes for simple high-low mix-up because he has a really good instant air dash with this jump M. He could do empty low when he air dashes, so you know, whatever you want to do, like 6S, call your assist, air dash for an overhead, or empty low, or you could do stuff like hit with one hit of his jump M and then cancel into jump H so you don't get both hits, which is really tricky. And then you could go straight for a crouch light when you land for a like single hit high, one hit low, or single hit high, don't hit the second hit, go for a Dragon Rush or something like that. And then of course he has the universal 50-50 in the corner of super dash, call your assist, and then land and go low, or air dash for an overhead. And this sort of thing is really rewarding, especially since just standard pressure is super, super good. Because as we've established already, he has incredibly good damage, right? So if you get frame trapped by this character, you're probably just gonna die. Like, let's be honest, like, you're straight up not having a good time if you get hit by a frame trap from him. And it helps that he can also frame trap with reflect-proof block strings as well. So his pressure's really good, his ability to KO you if you happen to try to disrespect him and he calls it out the right way is super high, and his general mix-up, like cross-ups, same side, Dragon Rush, stagger, whatever, high-low mix-up, all of this stuff is super, super good with him. So focus on that first, and then use the other stuff second. Another thing to keep in mind, whether you're playing him or playing against him, is that he is not a projectile-heavy character. He does not have a standard key blast. He does not have, you know, obviously doesn't have a beam or an air key blast of any kind. He has these antennae, right? So this is his forward key blast. And this does actually jail into a true block string, right? So it's basically just a beam, but it's a beam that doesn't go full screen, has a lot of startup, and is pretty risky to toss out. And he doesn't have anything like that in the air. He's a very buttonsy character. His buttons are really good to compensate for that, but he is at his best when you are taking risks that he can either punish with like an anti-air or like sniping a super dash with his amazing jump light. He's honestly a pretty good wall because his ground buttons are pretty good, his air buttons are amazing. I think the best way for most people to play Piccolo is going to be letting your assists do the work, because he doesn't have projectiles of his own, right? Also, if he's able to force you into the air, his air buttons are excellent, between his jump M, his jump H, and his amazing jump light. So assists that cover the ground really well are excellent for him because he's able to chase you down so well. And usually he's able to convert air block strings really well, so that's also a super good thing. He's just not going to play a very projectile heavy game, so just keep in mind that he's hoping that you take risks. So if you're playing Piccolo, be willing to play a little slower in neutral and chill out some more. And if you're playing against Piccolo, you should be willing to do the same, because he's hoping that you are being a little over aggressive and taking risks that you don't need to. But speaking of taking risks, one situation where you're going to be forced to at some point is if he's able to get these orbs out, because these will attract to you very slowly and he's going to be able to get in off it if you don't move. Luckily, these are Ki Blast property, so you can super dash through it, and you're going to have to make that decision at some point if you don't want to have to block it. But when you make that decision, please be mindful of when you do it. Sometimes don't do it at all. Sometimes do it at a timing you didn't do it before, because he is looking for super dash in this situation. One of the only things he really does have to look for in this situation is super dash. So just do a good job of mixing it up, and if you're the Piccolo player, sometimes run in and try to convert the orb into pressure, and sometimes chill out and wait for the super dash. There's one unique situation with these orbs in neutral that I think is worth talking about, and that's when the orb is about to make contact with you in the air. And the reason this is special compared to when it's going to make contact with you on the ground is because Piccolo can chase you in the air really, really well, and super dashing in this situation usually doesn't make a big difference. So if you were to block the orb in the air like this, all Piccolo really wants to do is make you block his jump L so he can convert into pressure. But if you were to super dash in this situation, what usually happens is just that the jump L hits you if you did it early enough to even get punished. So if you do it too late, you'll just block, and if you do it too early, then you'll actually get hit here. Hopefully I'm explaining these situations from both players' side of view, so whatever side of it you're on, it can be of use to you. Whoever understands the situation better is going to win in that situation more often, or avoid the bad situation for them because they know how bad it is. Anyway, I think I've been rambling about Piccolo for a little bit too long. I don't really have a direction with the stuff I'm choosing to talk about, just anything I think is neat and worth talking about. There's plenty that I missed. Again, this is not a complete Piccolo guide, but I hope I did a good job of outlining how the Season 3.5 changes affected him, and what you have to look forward to if you're interested in playing him or fighting against him. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we've been covering a bunch of characters that got really big changes in the 3.5 patch. We've already covered Blue Vegeta, Gogeta, Tien, and Master Roshi, so if you're interested in those videos, please check them out and subscribe to the channel for more. I'm streaming somewhat regularly on Twitch too, so if you're interested in watching or hanging out over there and asking questions over there, feel free to stop by. There's more on the way soon. Thanks for watching.